The secret of heaven, your promised eternal inheritance, God's great restoration plan.
If you close your eyes and picture heaven right now, what's the visual you land on?
Hmm.
For most of us, it's a pretty hazy picture, right? Clouds, soft light, maybe some endless, peaceful choir practice.
Right. That standard, almost vague snapshot of eternal spiritual rest.
Yeah.
And that hazy abstraction is precisely what the sources we're diving into today are challenging. They argue that we've defaulted to a beautiful but ultimately substanceless imagination.
And we need to move beyond that.
We do. They propose that if we act like detectives and truly follow the scriptural clues, we can establish the real, substantive nature of the inheritance God has promised.
So we aren't dealing with personal wishes or philosophical theories here. This is an attempt at, a meticulous textual analysis?
That's it, drawing a precise, concrete blueprint of the eternal realm based on connecting verses that people often read in isolation.
I like that.
And the underlying premise is that heaven is not a non-material spiritual void. It is a dynamic world existing in defined time, physical space, and materiality, much like our current world, only perfected.
Okay, so let's begin this deep dive by acting like detectives. We're trying to solve the riddle of the inheritance promised to the overcomer.
Let's do it.
If this eternal world is material and dynamic, we have to start with the biggest logical puzzle, time. How can an eternal world, which is supposedly outside of human measurement, still have concepts like day, month, and year?
That question cuts right to the heart of the source materials argument. And the strongest piece of evidence they bring forward comes not from Revelation, but, surprisingly, from the Old Testament law.
Really?
Specifically, the commands regarding the feasts.
You mean the annual cycles, like the Sabbath, Passover, or the Feast of Tabernacles?
Precisely. If you look at the instructions God gave to Israel in Exodus and Leviticus for establishing these 7 major feasts, what is the recurring mandate?
The phrase.
The specific phrase repeated is that these feasts are an everlasting ordinance to be kept throughout your generations.
Everlasting. Okay, so if a command is everlasting, it must remain valid and fulfilled even in the eternal state.
Yes. And here is the logical deduction the sources rely on. Annual feasts and weekly Sabbaths require a calendar to mark their timing.
And a calendar requires the sun and the moon, their movement.
Right. It requires the constant measured movement of the sun and the moon.
So an everlasting demand requiring a calendar inherently demands that the eternal world itself must possess the persistent cyclical flow of time for that command to be physically fulfilled.
That's the argument.
Yeah.
The sources contend we shouldn't think of this eternal world having to conform to Earth's 24/7 cycle.
Okay.
Instead, they propose a profound conceptual shift. We should view Earth's system, our sun, our moon, our 365 days, as a copy,
A reflection.
a reflection made in the image of heaven's original eternal blueprint. Our time is simply the temporal shadow of eternal time.
Wow, that reframes everything. If the eternal realm operates on a time cycle, then suddenly the description of the tree of life makes profound sense.
That is corroborating evidence.
Exactly. You're referring to Revelation 22. What does that verse tell us about the tree?
It yields 12 crops of fruit.
One for each month. The explicit inclusion of the concept of a 12-month year supports the idea of an established, functioning celestial calendar.
It connects perfectly. However, any thorough detective work must immediately confront the conflicting evidence.
Right.
What's the main counter-argument against the existence of the sun and moon in heaven?
It's also in Revelation the famous verse stating that in the holy city there is no night and no need for the sun or lamp because God's glory provides the light. If there is no sun, the time cycle breaks down.
And that seems like an irreconcilable contradiction. But the source material is careful to limit the application of that verse geographically.
Geography in heaven. Tell us more.
The promise, the lack of sun and the lack of night, applies only to the specific location of the holy city.
The New Jerusalem.
Right. Think of this as the capital city of heaven.
The central governing hub.
Exactly. Inside the walls of the holy city, God's immediate glory is so intense that it serves as the perpetual ultimate light source. The sun and moon are, well, redundant there.
Okay. But
this is where the detailed reading comes in. Outside the city walls, for the rest of the vast material eternal world, the sources maintain that the sun and moon still rise and set.
maintaining the cycle of day and night.
Yes,
Well-
which is necessary for the calendar, the feasts, and the life of the nations who live there.
So the lack of sun applies only to the let's say, the presidential palace, not the entire country.
That's a great way to put it.
That is a crucial distinction that resolves the apparent scriptural tension.
It allows the concept of eternal time to stand.
So if we accept the source material's conclusion that time cycles are necessary for the eternal world, then the logical follow-up is this. We must also be given a body capable of existing permanently within that physical, time-bound reality. We
Right.
can't just be wispy ghosts in an environment that requires planting, harvesting, and walking.
Precisely. And this leads to a redefinition of resurrection itself, which goes far beyond merely surviving death. If we turn to 1 Corinthians 15, we hear that famous phrase.
The perishable must clothe itself with the imperishable. The resurrection is thus a literal clothing, not a dissolution.
It is a complete renewal. It means receiving a new, complete physical body. This body is composed of a heavenly material. It's physical, but not subject to decay or the laws of entropy we currently face.
So it's the ultimate perfect interface for the perfect reality.
It allows our eternal spirit to inhabit that new material world permanently and dynamically. What is the model for this perfect body?
The sources suggest the model is foundational.
Yes, our new perfected physical body will be exactly like the original sinless body possessed by Adam and Eve before the fall.
We are being restored to God's original design for humanity.
That's it.
That connects the dots beautifully. The ultimate reward isn't an alien place or an alien form. It's receiving the original configuration back.
The earth was originally Eden, a perfect material world, and we are receiving the perfect material body to inhabit it.
So the core insight is that heaven is not a totally foreign new world.
It is the restored Eden. God's original creation plan, which was interrupted by Satan, resumes and completes itself through us.
Okay, so we have the restored world, the restored body, and the restored clock. Now, this is where most people's understanding ends. They assume the job description is simply pleasant leisure and contemplation.
Right.
What does the source material say we do for eternity? What is our eternal role?
Well, the sources present a far more dynamic and, frankly, a much more demanding job description.
Which is,
We will be kings of the earth.
that's a massive promotion. What scriptural support mandates that kind of royal role for the saved?
We have several foundational verses. Revelation 5, verse 10, explicitly states that the redeemed will reign on the earth.
Okay.
And then Revelation 21, verse 24 mentions the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it.
And most logically, Jesus is titled the King of Kings. That title inherently necessitates the existence of other kings.
Other kings, yes,
Us.
who serve him in that capacity. It establishes the royal hierarchy.
So the question then becomes, if we are all kings, what exactly are we reigning over? Who are the subjects? Are we ruling over this planet just restored?
This is where the source material makes its most radical and challenging claim.
I'm ready.
The subjects we will rule over are our own descendants.
Wait a minute. We, the resurrected, will be the progenitors of an eternal civilization. We will be starting families in the eternal realm.
That is the direct, unvarnished interpretation. To understand why, we have to look at the activation of Genesis 1:28.
God's original foundational command to Adam and Eve.
Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth, subdue it, rule over every living thing.
That great project was put on hold by the fall.
Correct. And the sources argue that since God's ultimate plans are never abandoned or scrapped, this foundational creative mandate will restart through us. We, the resurrected, are considered the first fruits, the perfected model, the original Adam restored,
So we become the progenitors of many new families.
which grow into the large populations and nations, the nations mentioned in Revelation 21 and 22.
So our personal salvation is not just a ticket to rest. It's an appointment as the founding royal family of a renewed, everlasting creation. We are mandated to rule and shepherd and guide these growing nations of descendants.
It transitions our understanding from personal salvation to participation in God's eternal creative mandate, the great project of filling, subduing, and ruling the earth.
Incredible scope. But this immediately introduces the next puzzle, and it's a difficult one. If we are immortal, the first resurrection participants, are these descendants, our offspring, also born with perfected immortal bodies?
The sources explicitly state no.
No.
They're not born immortal like us. This is where the tension becomes acute.
How can mortality, even relative mortality, exist within an eternal kingdom and a restored Eden? That seems fundamentally contradictory to the idea of perfection.
To justify this claim, the sources turn to a specific prophetic passage, Isaiah 65. Now, traditionally, this chapter is often viewed as describing the millennium.
A 1,000-year period of earthly peace before the eternal state.
Right. But these sources place in the context of the eternal state,
Why?
because the language is so specific and so detailed about the conditions of life. Listen to verse 20. He who dies at 100 will be thought a mere youth. He who fails to reach 100 will be considered accursed.
That is startling evidence of mortality. Death clearly exists, even if lifespans are drastically extended.
It confirms that finite lifespans are still a feature of this eternal kingdom. And the sources justify its application to the eternal state because the passage refers to a new heaven and a new earth language that mirrors Revelation 21.
Okay, so we have death, but who exactly is subject to this death?
The source material identifies who dies in the subsequent verse, Isaiah 65:23. They are the descendants of the blessed of the Lord.
Let's break that down for the listener.
The blessed of the Lord refers to us, the participants in the first resurrection.
And the descendants.
Our offspring, we receive the immortal, perfected body. Our descendants possess a robust, long, but ultimately finite life.
And this finite life explains the necessity of the ultimate life support system, the tree of life. We read that its leaves are for the healing of the nations in Revelation 22.
Precisely. That need for healing, that constant access to life-sustaining resources is required because our descendants, while born into a perfect, blessed environment, still retain two crucial elements.
Finite life.
And free will.
Meaning they can still choose obedience or disobedience?
Yes. The implication is that obedience means continued access to the tree, sustaining their very long lives. Disobedience, however, could lead to a curse, being cut off from that life source and ultimately leading to death.
So the perfect environment guarantees long life, but not inherent immortality.
That's the idea.
This is perhaps the most intellectually demanding aspect of the entire thesis, so we have to address the single biggest point of conflict.
And which one do you mean?
Jesus' direct statement in Matthew 22 that at the resurrection, people will neither marry nor be given in marriage. If this is true, how can we possibly have descendants to rule?
This is the moment where the textual analysis must be highly nuanced to harmonize the verses. The sources rely on a conditional clause found in Luke 20.
Which deals with the same topic but provides an extra layer of detail.
It does.
So what's the specific condition the source material hinges its argument upon?
Jesus clarifies that the marriage exclusion applies specifically to those who are considered worthy of taking part in that age and in the resurrection from the dead.
Will neither marry nor be given in marriage. So the key is the phrase, those who are considered worthy.
It applies only to a distinct, specially selected group. Exactly. The source interprets this as applying specifically to us, the first fruits. Our relationship is transformed. We enter a unique, non-human, God-ordained relationship, similar to Adam and Eve's original creation before the need for propagation via traditional marriage began.
We are set apart as the immortal rulers and progenitors.
Right.
So if you focus on the conditional statement in Luke 20, the one that exempts the worthy from marriage, it implies a paradoxical necessity.
It implies that the other group, our mortal descendants, the nations we rule, must still have marriage.
And be given in marriage.
If they are to be fruitful and multiply and grow the eternal civilization, the mechanisms of human propagation must continue for them.
That is a very careful reading designed to preserve the Genesis mandate while still honoring Jesus' words. It makes the resurrected a unique class who have transcended the need for the institution of marriage.
But who still kickstart the propagation of humanity on the perfected earth. It's the only way within this framework that the royal mandate to multiply and rule can be achieved.
Okay. Let's end with the emotional dimension. This is crucial for the listener. If our descendants retain mortality, even if they live 1,000 years, won't this contradict the promise in Revelation 21 that there will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain?
And the source treats this as a cautious speculation, acknowledging this profound emotional conflict. They offer two scenarios regarding death in the eternal kingdom.
Let's look at the first scenario, the long natural end of life.
In the case of a descendant reaching a massive old age, say 5,000 years, and their life naturally concluding, that death will be viewed not as sadness or tragedy, but as a joyful graduation.
So the agony, the suffering, the tragic finality of earthly death is just gone?
It's entirely removed. It's seen as a necessary and wonderful transition.
A graduation into what, exactly?
The sources speculate it's a graduation into a more glorious body, akin to what the first fruits received, a transition from the merely finite to the truly eternal, but only after they have successfully lived out their full, righteous, mortal life.
And the second scenario, death caused by disobedience or being cut off from the tree of life. How do the sources handle the mourning then?
Here, the source material is far more reserved. They avoid a clear explanation of how the emotional conflict is resolved, only stating that there will be reasons beyond our current understanding that prevent mourning.
So they just acknowledge the verse promises no tears and trust that God's justice will resolve it.
Pretty much. They trust it will resolve the necessity of the curse without generating grief among the immortal rulers.
What a transformation of the standard vision of eternity. We've moved from vague clouds to a fully restored Eden with time, space, physical bodies, and a mandated role as royal progenitors ruling over nations of descendants.
It's the grand continuation of God's Genesis plan, finally achieving fruition through us, the redeemed.
And that context places our current life in a radical perspective. If you view the inheritance this way, the parable of the treasure hidden in the field,
The man who finds the treasure and sells everything he has,
it takes on a powerful, tangible meaning. He sells everything because the value of the field and the treasure within it vastly outweighs his present possessions.
exactly. If the reward we are inheriting is this concrete and enormous, this vast eternal kingdom we are meant to rule and build, then the suffering or sacrifice of our current lives truly pales in comparison to the glory that shall be revealed. It makes the sacrifice absolutely worth every moment.
It transforms our eternal destination from a mere passive reward into our active, tangible, eternal enterprise.
Something we must train for.
And invest everything to secure.
Right. And if the like we are preparing for is to be a co-ruler and founder of an eternal civilization, then our time on earth is not merely a waiting period after receiving a ticket to heaven.
It's an internship.
It is, in essence, an internship or a rigorous training period for becoming a civilization's founder and ruler. It makes you wonder, what specific skills in governance, character, or stewardship might you be preparing right now for that eternal enterprise? Are you ready to inherit your kingdom?